So, we begin with the Board of Library Trustees. We have 2 seats. With the candidates for the Board of Library Trustees, please come up to the stage. Jennifer DeMoncion and Margaret Meyer. Myatt, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Myatt. Okay. So I'm going to ask Jennifer if you would like to be first.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer DeMoncion, and I am running for re-election to the Library Board of Trustees. I'm a lifelong Milfordian with a precocious 7-year-old daughter who will also grow up here. I've worked in finance, customer service, management, and as a community advocate, so I have a diverse and applicable set of skills that will continue to benefit the Library Board of Trustees. The Milford Town Library is a true cornerstone to the Milford community, and my objective is to continue to do everything possible to help maintain and improve upon the existing programs, policies, services, and technology it offers. I will work to ensure that everyone in our community can enjoy the library today and in the future. The Milford Town Library should always be a safe, welcoming, and comfortable place for anyone in the community to use. In the last 3 years, I have worked diligently to assist the Board of Library Trustees and the Library Director in maintaining a budget that keeps the Milford Town Library in a strong financial position within town budgetary guidelines while maintaining the funding levels necessary to meet state aid requirements and retain certification. I have worked tirelessly to ensure that projects related to infrastructure and technology are investigated, vetted, and completed in a timely manner, and that programming is offered to all demographics of our diverse community. Whatever role the Board of Trustees needed me in, I have responded with flexibility and readiness, whether it needed a trustee, an accountant, a contractor, an advocate, a secretary, or a minutes keeper. I've played an active role and have never missed a meeting, either regular or special, and have participated in a majority of the subcommittees that the board has convened. I want to continue all the work that I have started and look forward to tackling the work that still needs to be done. Working with the board and the library director as a team to ensure that the Milford Library stays relevant and flourishes in the evolving world of technology and community demands is at the forefront of my goals. I kindly ask for your vote for library trustee on April 3rd so that I can continue to make my work to ensure that our library remains the shining star of our local libraries.
Well timed. Thank you. Margaret?
Oh, did I hit it right on the mark?
You hit it right on the mark.
Well done.
I think mine is going to be about 1 minute and 45 seconds, so I'll have 15 seconds extra. Good evening. My name is Margaret Myatt, and I'm running for the Board of Trustees of the Milford Town Library. I am seeking your support and your vote. I'm running because I am a huge fan of the library, and I want to contribute to its continued success. I had served as a library for 3 terms, or 9 years, from 1998 to 2007, and I enjoyed my service tremendously. Back then, I did not seek re-election because of a job change, but now I am retired, and I have time and enthusiasm to serve again. I've lived in Milford for 35 years, and I've demonstrated my commitment to the town in many ways. As I mentioned, I was a library trustee in the past. Also, I am a longtime town meeting member. I serve on the Milford Commission on Disability, and I was the first president of the Friends of the Milford Upper Charles Trail. Milford is a great town, and I really enjoy giving back to it with my time and my service. I will be able to dedicate time and service to complete the objectives of the library's current 5-year strategic plan. And I will always advocate for library resources at the local, state, and national levels. I am an avid public library supporter, and I look forward to serving as a trustee again. My family and I are enthusiastic library users, and we know what a fantastic resource it is for so many people. Again, my name is Margaret Myatt, and I'm asking for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Again, well timed. So now we have the opportunity for questions from the audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and someone will come to you with a microphone. It's open to you now.
I'm Jackie Gorman. I'm the teen and tween librarian at the Milford Town Library. And so my question tonight to both you ladies, what do you think of the program and what do you see in the future for the program?
Well, you go ahead, Margaret. You got the microphone right there.
I do not have a precocious 7-year-old. I have a 28 and 30-year-old who are not in town. So I haven't been close to those programs lately. I think the most important thing is that the staff of the library knows what's best to do, but the job of trustees is to advocate and try to secure the resources to implement any of the projects that you folks think are the most important.
Jennifer?
I'm going to agree that it's certainly not within our actual purview, but I, as a trustee who's watched it, I think the program is wonderfully run by yourself and the others in that wonderful department. There are certainly resources that need to be allocated and that we have on the 5-year capital improvement plan to support your programming. I know that the director and the trustees have talked about it on multiple occasions, so I think that's a definite priority. I know that this town is benefited greatly by everything that your department does. So whatever we can give you and whatever you need, you'll have.
Yes, Dr. Richard Heller. Margaret, I know you served for 9 years, and Jen for 3. I would like you to, each one of you, to tell me what your major accomplishment was during your term as trustees.
Okay, so the question is, what were the major accomplishments from 1998 to 2007? We experienced a new director, and we went through that transition. We accomplished the library renovation project, which was huge. I don't know if people remember what it looked like before. That was a very large project. Believe it or not, technology was kind of new back then. And we had to implement policy and infrastructure for computer banks that did not exist in the past. A whole new set of policies had to be in place. And so it was really a time of change, and it went quite successfully.
Jennifer?
So in the last 3 years, we've done, I mean, it's only 3 years, so it's not quite as impressive. But it's been a couple of years of very tough financial waters where we've been really working within our own guidelines to make sure that everything got done. We've set up 4 or 5 different committees to review policies and procedures and other infrastructure that needs to be done, and gotten quite a bit of it done. We got the parking lot, we added on spaces, which has been a huge positive that has been a complaint for years. So it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we have been really working on. And in a couple of really tight budget years, we've gotten a lot of infrastructure fixed that needed to be fixed and that will continue to be fixed.
Next question.
This question is for both of you. Are you happy with how many Milford residents use the library services? If not, what would you do to better educate Milfordians on services available at the library?
Oh, I'm never happy with that. I want everyone in the building every day of the week, but it's certainly improving. We've taken steps to boost our social media and our online presence, as well as the regular media such as radio and newspapers, because we always want more people in. We're actually keeping track to see if we can find a pattern to boost even more. And see if more hours or less hours or different programming at different hours is actually what is necessary. So we want everybody in the library at all times, and we're working on making sure that everyone knows that the programs are available and open to the public, and that we'd love to have everybody in.
Margaret?
Ditto on that. But also, another thing is, I know the newsletter is new, and I think that's going to be distributed throughout the community. But a huge use of the library these days is not actually from people walking into the building, which is a good thing to have people walking in. But also, I noticed many seniors are using the online resources. And the library, we are dedicated to our region, which is called CW Mars. And a good portion of the materials budget is dedicated to those online books. So you're downloading books to Kindles and so forth, and that's because of the library. It's great for working people. It's great for senior citizens.
Bookstores are losing ground to electronic books and Amazon. The act of Googling has replaced a trip to the library to research a topic. Do you see town and city libraries as a viable community service going forward? And how do you propose Milford's library to adapt to the changes and continue to provide value to our community?
Okay, well, that's a big question. Let me try to address it quickly. The fact that people are Googling and downloading books does not take away from the opportunities that are inside the building. The youth groups, the children's room are incredibly active. It's actually hard to reserve a room because it's used so often. And one of the goals of the library is to have the library be a place to connect. And I know many committees meet there. Commission on Disability has met there from time to time. So the traffic to the library will not stop. And we hope it will not slow down, and it should increase.
Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss? I apologize.
Well, honestly, I think we're both on exactly the same page and saying the same thing, that the library is never going to go away, whether or not you're reading a physical book or some sort of other media. It's a place for a community no matter what you're doing. It's to meet, it's to be. And so I think it's exactly what you're saying, is that it's never going to really go away. And it never should, because it will just change and evolve to meet whatever demands the community has of it. So it's really important, no matter how we're accessing data and information, that we're there to support that.
Hi, Rory D'Alessandro, Chair of the Library Trustees. Just a question. What do you think is the biggest issue going forward for the library, and how would you intend to address that?
Is this for both candidates?
It's for both.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that the biggest issue going forward is our funding. We've struggled within our town guidelines to maintain certification, and certification is absolutely necessary. It's necessary for us to keep going for books and for audiovisual, and for being able to keep our infrastructure intact. So we have to find a way to work within all of our guidelines and to expand for our community and to do all of the things that we need to do while taking that into account. I mean, we have to grow and we have to become what the community needs, and we have to find a way to do that within budget across the board.
Okay, we have time for two more questions.
Okay,
You're going to respond.
it's a ditto on that. But I also do want to add that the process for a certification is complicated, and it does require that the budget grows incrementally year after year, and that's a tough thing to do when we're all fighting for the same tax dollars. To find those resources locally is one thing, but we also have to reach out to the state. And there's a lot of programs for trustees to go to, such as legislative breakfast, Constituents Day on Beacon Hill, and even writing our national legislators, because it's really a fight, and that is the most important issue facing the library.
Mark Shane, I have to take issue with your comment about not being financed properly. I was on the finance committee for a while. I don't think we've ever turned down anything that the library has asked for, and we make sure that the certification numbers are always in the budget, always to the point that the library typically is over the 2.5% or 2% or whatever the guidelines are, because we want to maintain certification. So if there are issues that the Library Board of Trustees have, then I think that you should show up at the Finance Committee and ask for more money and justify the programs. because I'm sure that the Finance Committee will support the library and has always supported the library. So tell me where we're short on the money. I mean, what have you asked for that you didn't get?
Mark, thank you so much for supporting us year after year. I remember those meetings, and yeah, I mean, you guys have been great, really. The whole town has always done as best they can for the library, as they have with other services in the community. We're a well-run town, and it shows. It's always a battle because not only within the bottom line, but the process requires a certain blend of materials to staffing and to find the sweet spot for that financial support is really the biggest part of the project.
And
Jennifer? You have
I was going to say, it's not that we're not supported. You guys are amazing when we come in front of you and we're at 2.9%. Or you're absolutely 100% correct in that you have never said no. But we have had very tight budget years. We're at level funding this year, and at where we are right now, in the next 2 years, it is going to be a not great place without having to make a lot of justifications. And that's neither your fault nor ours. It just is what it is. It's not that you don't support us. You've been amazing. You've always, when we come in front of you and we justify it, you get it done, and we are extraordinarily appreciative for it. But it has been tight, and you know, it's a struggle to find the balance between the lines that we have to find that you understand for certification, and it is what it is. So it's been great working with you, but it has been rather tough. And we just want to make sure it goes smoothly in the future.
Okay. We thank you, too, very, very much.
Okay, we will start from this side. So, Laura, if you don't mind coming up and starting, that would be great, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laura Siarmakoli Njemi. My husband and I have 3 daughters, ages 7, 5, and 2. I'm a lifelong Milford resident, having graduated from Milford High School in 1999. I am a graduate of College of the Holy Cross and Northeastern University, where I earned my master's in accounting and my MBA. I worked in public accounting for 5 years at Ernst & Young before making a career change to become a teacher. I have been a business teacher at Hopedale Junior Senior High School for the last 9 years. I want to use my experience as a teacher, a parent, and a businesswoman to have a positive impact on our educational system. I am looking to take the next step, having already participated on PTO boards, school councils at Shining Star and Brookside for the last 4 years. I have a very solid understanding of the issues facing our children in our schools today. I can bring several different perspectives to the table. I interact daily with teachers, parents, students, administrators, and local businesses. As a resident and taxpayer, I want our children to be competitive in today's world. I believe in public education and would like to ensure that all of our children at every level are challenged to reach their full potential and beyond. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to serving the residents of Milford. I will not take this job lightly. I will work hard for every child. My record demonstrates that I am dedicated and I can work well with others in a collaborative environment. I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Megan?
Good evening, Milford. Many thanks to the citizens of Milford for organizing such important community events, and to each of you for attending tonight, whether here in person or viewing at home. My name is Megan Hornberger, and I am a candidate for school committee. I am a graduate of Milford High School and Providence College, where I earned my undergraduate degree in psychology. I received my Master's of Business Administration and Master's of Science in Accounting from Northeastern University, and I am a certified public accountant in Massachusetts. I've spent almost the last 2 decades in various roles in internal and external audit, although I'm often told I am not your stereotypical auditor, which I've learned to take as a compliment. I am the proud mother to 3 boys, and while being a mom is certainly one of my greatest personal accomplishments, it is not what qualifies me for the school committee. I come to the table with 18 years of professional experience, that will be particularly valuable in this role. The auditing profession adheres to a code of ethics that is founded on 4 principles: integrity, competence, confidentiality, and objectivity. I believe I embody all of these values. I also believe these values are essential serving on the school committee. I am a hard worker, an active listener, and an effective collaborator, skills that are required to be a productive member on this 7-person team. If elected, I will focus on improving measurements related to district strategic priorities and the long-range planning, and work to ensure that all decisions are made not only with all students, but all taxpayers in mind. My fundamental goal, if elected, is to bring thoughtfulness, collaboration, and accountability at every opportunity. I kindly ask for your consideration on April 3rd.
Hi, thank you. My name is Sarah Howe, and I'm running for school committee. First, thank you to Citizens for Milford for hosting, and to all of you for coming out tonight. Participation in our community is one of the things that makes Milford a great town, and it is my passion for the community that makes me a great candidate. I believe schools are the heart of a community, and it is my wish to serve our town in this capacity to help ensure that our schools are the best they can be for all the children of Milford. I want to be on the front lines of supporting the district plans and help to operationalize those plans and set policy to ensure all Milford students are able to meet their potential and more. I'm a 9-year resident of Milford with 3 young children who are currently attending or will soon attend Milford Public Schools. I found so many opportunities to participate in our community as we have so much to offer. I'm a town meeting member for Precinct 2. My husband and I both volunteer at the school as much as we're able. Our children attend and participate in community use programs. We attend Milford Beautification Day every spring, and we're regularly at the soccer fields. My family's committed to this community. I have 2 undergraduate degrees from the University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I have my bachelor's in English literature and my bachelor's of business administration and marketing. And I have 17 years of human resources experience with deep expertise in employee engagement. I know how important engagement is to success in the workplace. It is even more critical that students are engaged and participating in their academics and other learning and growth opportunities. Students bring their whole self to school, all of their confidence, anxieties, and interests, and it is my desire to find ways to educate that whole student, to support their development academically, as well as support their development of skills that are critical for success in life and future careers. It's also critical that we continue on the path of improving academic success and college or career readiness through specialized programs or focus on critical needs areas to ensure students are able to learn to the best of their ability. Finally, I believe this town has a lot to offer, and we as a community need to paint for ourselves and others a more fair and optimistic picture of our town and schools. It is for that reason I ask for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tarek Miranda, and I'm running for a seat on the school committee in Milford. I graduated from MHS in 2014. I'm graduating from Wentworth Institute of Technology with a degree in computer engineering within the next few months, and I'm going to get my master's in finance from Harvard. I believe that I can bring a different perspective to the table here, and I believe that I can connect with the young kids and get them to come out and vote. And I also believe that I can get them and connect to a big portion of the population in town that we kind of are underserving, I believe. And I really want to do what's best for all the students in town. And I would really like your vote on Tuesday, April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Tariq. Michael?
Greetings, everyone. My name is Mike Visconti. I am a lifelong resident of Milford, and I am running for a seat on the school committee because I have an urge to serve the town of Milford. I have been a town meeting member for in excess of 40 years, and I'm happy to say that in those 40-plus years, I have a 100% attendance record at town meeting. I have not missed one town meeting. I am also a former 20-year member on the Zoning Board of Appeals in Milford, and I'm sorry to say that my attendance record at the Zoning Board was only 99.5%. The 0.5% that I missed was due to a being hospitalized with a serious illness. I tried the best I could to get to that 0.5% meeting, but I just could not do it. I say this because I believe it speaks to my commitment to a task I take on. If I take on a task, I see it through to the end, and I will be there every step of the way without fail. I have extensive experience in management and administration. I have prepared and administered numerous multi-million-dollar budgets for various organizations, both financial in the private sector and in the public sector. I am a self-employed consultant. I have consulted and advised numerous boards of directors of all kinds of different organizations. I work well with other people, and I can assure you that I will be the hardest worker to ensure that every student that graduates from the Milford School District will graduate with a quality education. I will do my best, and I will be there for you. I have no children in the system, and I view that as a positive. And I say that because all of my positions that I take, if I am on the school committee, and all of my votes that I take will be taken in the best interest of all of the students, and not just what might be in the best interest of my children, because I have no children in the system. I am committed, and I'm an objective thinker, and I would ask respectfully that you cast one of your 3 votes for Mike Visconti on April 3. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Glenn.
Hi, my name is Glenn Wyke, and I'm running for a school committee. I'm a resident of Milford for 22 years, and in my career, I've been a software developer. I did that for about 18 years, and now I'm an IT consultant with my own small business. Issues that really concern me are school choice. I know we have a lot of parents who are taking their kids out of our school system, and I think that to a large degree, it's a perception issue and an educational issue. We need to tell the parents about the great programs we have at Milford schools. Number 2, we're starting to integrate more technology in the classroom. We have the great Chromebook program that we've won some awards for. As someone who's been in technology for 30 years, I think I can help the school committee and the school system meet their technology goals. And lastly, I would really like to see a beefier civics program in schools. As you probably know, our participation rate in elections is fairly low. And the best way, I think, to address that is to get kids to take an interest in politics early on, get them registered to vote, and get them to participate in model democracies and events like that. So I'm hoping that you've liked what you've heard so far, and please say I like Wyke on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Christopher.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Wilson. I'm running for a seat on the school committee. Along with my wife and 2 children, we've called Milford our home for the past 17 plus years. Both my children have always been enrolled in the Milford Public Schools, beginning with Shining Star, progressed to Brookside, then to Woodland, and now both our children, students at Stacy Middle School. As a parent, it's always been important to me to be involved in my children's education. That's why I've always served on the school councils at all the schools that they have attended. As a school council member, I was able to work with the administrators, teachers, and other parents to develop school improvement plans to ensure all Milford students have the best education possible. I want to continue my involvement by serving the Milford community on the school committee and be a representative that works hard to improve the entire school district. It will be my priority to establish Milford High School back to a level 1 school while ensuring both the elementary and middle schools are able to provide a solid education foundation for them. This will need to be accomplished while staying fiscally responsible with the town's operational budget. Milford is a diverse community that provides our students the opportunity to learn and grow in a global environment. It is important to be able to provide various courses of study to prepare all students for their future beyond Milford. Additionally, my involvement on the Milford Community Youth Board and serving as a town meeting member has provided me the experience serving the town of Milford. It is my desire to stay involved within our community and fulfill my commitment to continue to make Milford a great place to raise a family. I ask for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher.
Hi, my name's Tom Russ. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 2. Been here for 34 years. In light of today's actions by the high schoolers, which have become a tremendous political force, what are the reactions to you folks, or by you folks, to the efforts that these kids are putting forth to become heard, understood, and listened to? And I specifically am talking about this gun control business with guns in the high school and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your question. No, I think we've done a good job allowing our students the space that they need to express themselves. I know that they were able to, well, Milford wasn't able to participate today because of the snow day, but I think that they have done a good job and they had a plan in place to allow them to participate, which I think was the right thing to do.
First and foremost, I think it's heartbreaking that it's actually even a consideration, specifically as related to guns, that we have to factor that into our schools. But that said, it is today's reality. Honestly, it's motivating to me what the children in Florida have done, that they've got up and taken such a stance. And I feel like you're either part of the solution or part of the problem. School days are short, and so I would like to limit the amount of time that we miss in the classroom for such endeavors. But I absolutely support taking a stance, making a difference.
So I'll echo what Meg said. If there are students and teachers who are walking out because they're scared, then we as a society and as educators and leaders are obligated to listen and have a dialogue and find a way to try and address their concerns. And a criticism of education today is often a lack of civic education. These students they're participating in the civic process. We should encourage that dialogue in a healthy way.
I believe what the kids are doing to be heard, it's a good thing, although skipping class, and I don't really approve of that, but how they're being involved through social media and getting together, I think it's a great thing for our society, and maybe in 40, 50 years we'll have 50% voter turnout. But regarding the guns, I think we have to do we have to look at any way necessary to keep the students safe. Besides arming teachers and putting guns in the schools, we should just teach. We have to have an educated population and try to help all the students as much as we can. And if we're not doing that, then we're just going to continue to have more and more problems down the line.
I would never discourage any individual or group of individuals from expressing their point of view. However, I feel that the issue of gun control and safety in schools, or anywhere for that matter, it's not necessarily a school, I believe everybody is already well aware of the situation, and I'm not sure what effect a student walkout would have on moving anything to resolve the situation further along. But I would never discourage any individual or group of individuals from expressing their opinion. Thank you.
Well, I have to say I'm greatly encouraged by the response. After these unfortunate incidents, what we've seen happen over and over again is people offer thoughts and prayers and everybody moves on and nothing really changes and everybody goes back to their day-to-day lives. And the fact that these kids will not relent, that they are continuing to protest and to speak out about this, says that this may be the start of a movement where something could possibly change. And so I'm greatly encouraged by that.
Thank you for your question. In regards to school, to the student walkout today, I'm in support of it. Certainly they're the voice of our future, so it's important for them to be civically engaged in what's going on in our country. So whether they wanted to sit in a room for 17 minutes and think about what had happened down in Florida or walk out in protest, again, it's very encouraging that they're getting involved. In regards to school safety, it's in the utmost importance to me. Every day I drop my 2 children off at school. My wife works for a neighboring school. And then every day I want them to make sure that they're coming back. So as a school committee member, I think it's going to be important that the school committee themselves, we're working with local law enforcement, and we're constantly looking at our schools and making sure that they're safe for our children. Law enforcement's the experts, so it's important for the school committee to reach out to that law enforcement, have them look at our schools, assess our schools, and make any necessary changes that they feel would be necessary to keep everyone safe.
The 2 previous questions. Are there other critical issues facing our schools that the school committee must address in the next 3 years?
Thank you for that question. Obviously, Milford High School being at a level 3 status is of great concern to me. Level 3 status means that we're in the bottom 20th percentile in regards to our scores. So certainly, when we look at the averages and as the state average for that low, we need to come up with a comprehensive plan to ensure that we can approach back to a level 1 status and get to a level 1 status. Also, social emotional learning is a very hot topic now, especially in regards to what you just saw in Florida. So to ensure that students understand one another and learn empathy, and it starts at a young age, but it needs to carry it right through to 12th grade.
Yes, I've already mentioned the school choice issue, and I think that's a top priority. Trying to get our kids going to school in Milford schools. I would also put correcting doing better on the MCAS scores as another thing that feeds this perception to people that the Milford school system is not doing as well as it should be. And the thing is that the administration is already working on that. They've already had a pilot program, so I think we're going in the right direction on that. So I think for us, it's mostly fixing that perception problem with telling people about the programs in our schools.
Three issues, 2 of which have been touched on already. School choice. We need to do something to reverse the students that are choicing out of the school versus the students that are choicing into our school system. And the way we do that is we show the parents of Milford that the Milford school system is turning out a superior product to the towns, to our surrounding towns. That is what we have to do. Once we can do that, I can tell you that there will be fewer students choicing out of the system. And I believe one of the ways we can do that is when my son was of school age, I didn't think twice about sending him through the Milford school system. If I had a child now, I might think twice about it. I would look at other towns and I would say to myself, gee, these towns are turning out a superior product, and by a superior product I mean a student that is more educated than the student that the Milford school system is turning out.
Thank you, Mike.
I don't deal in emotional.
I'm sorry, I need to cut you off.
I'll be happy to talk to anybody about the other 2 issues after. Thank you.
Hello. A few issues that they need to address would be definitely the school choice. Why do 200 kids choice out and 100 kids choice in? It's a good thing that 100 kids choice in, but it leaves a difference of 100. We have an infrastructure that's falling apart in some schools. Besides Woodland, it's beautiful. The high school, there's a leaking roof in some sections, and I've gone to every school, and they all tell me that there are many problems that can be fixed inside the school. And a third one would be our ranking in the state. We're a ranked 3 school, so performing the bottom 20th percentile of the state. And when I graduated, we were a Tier 1 school, and that was only in 2014. So what caused the rapid decline in 4 years, and how can we fix that?
Oh, thank you. Josh Otlin wrote a blog recently on the Massachusetts Administrators blog post that talked about the correlation between economically disadvantaged communities and performance. So I think when we talk about the performance issue or the scorecard, the rating, we have to also first look at our population and look at towns similar to ours that are performing and ask ourselves what programs are they implementing, because our community is burgeoning, it's getting bigger, and we're going to continue to have these challenges. So we really need to look at every opportunity to try and rise above those. So I think that's going to be probably the biggest issue that we're going to face over the next number of years.
I certainly concur with the challenges that have been outlined by my peers on the stage, so I agree with those. I think the district has also identified those, and I do believe they're working on them. I would really like to see some additional measures of accountability, not only from the administration, but from the school committee. What are our goals and objectives, and how are we meeting those so that we can be held accountable to those goals? I would also like to see additional emphasis on the long-range planning. So those are sort of two additional things that come to mind for me, but I believe most of the challenges are being worked on.
Yes, I also agree with what some of the people up here have spoken about, things like the school choice. I think it's important that we take a hard look at that and make sure we're doing the best we can to market ourselves and change the perception out there that, we have a lot of great programs. For example, at the high school level, we offer 19 AP classes, which is fantastic. So I think we also have the early college program that recently came into place, and that's an opportunity for our students to take college level courses at the high school. So we have a lot of great programs that we have in place right now, so we just need to continue to market those and change the perception out there that we do have a really great school and a great community behind it. In addition, I think the social and emotional learning is going to be key. We need to continue to support our teachers and our students, that's pre-K through 12, to make sure that our schools are safe for learning and that everyone is getting the best education they possibly can. Students need to be able and be ready to learn. And in order to do that, we need to support them socially and emotionally. And I think that's about it.
Next question. Oh.
Hello, I commend all 7 of you. I don't know why it's not mixed up a little bit, but that's okay. I had two children just go through the system. Tarek knows them. And one of my issues personally is discipline. There's no consistency of discipline between students, and I can say that personally. And also, past school committee members who are not on the board today meddled in the discipline and they went to administrators. So what, as a school committee under your charge, could you prevent that from happening?
It's a great question. Certainly I've spent the last 2 months doing sort of as much research as I can and outreach to administrators and teachers to learn. But certainly connecting with parents is also a critical component of this job and understanding. My belief is that our ability to get involved in that is really at the policy level. So what is the policy and are we following it? And if we're not following it, that's an issue that has to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's the school committee's purview to get involved in discipline. If there's a policy in place, we should, and it's not being followed, then we need to coach to that and make sure that we're consistent with how we're applying our disciplinary practices across all the schools.
I think the policies and the rules are in place, they're just not being followed, and then we have to find a way to hold the people in charge accountable for that. I know many kids who skip and don't go to class and do all of that, and they just get away with it. No Saturday school, no nothing. So why are they getting away with it? And I think that's what we have to address.
Yeah, one of the things we have to do is, and in this day and age, discipline is difficult to. Discipline is a tough thing to control in the schools, as you know. One of the things we have to do is we have to take all of the subjectivity out of the rule book, if you will. For example, if we say anywhere that it says that this may happen to you or this might happen to you. It has to be a definitive, this will, and we have to take all the subjectivity out of it. If you break the rule, this is what happens to you, no questions asked. Students will come to learn that if they break the rules, they have to pay the price. Thank you.
Yes, I think from my perspective, it's mostly just about making sure that we have the right policies in place and that we're making sure that people are enforcing those policies in the most even-handed way possible. And so that would be my focus from the school committee.
Thank you for your question. You know, certainly as a school committee member, you're in charge of two basic things, policy and the budget. In your case, it's a policy issue. So it's going to be the school committee's job to ensure that the specific policies are in place in regards to discipline. And it's also going to be our job to make sure that the superintendent is passing down those policies to the principals. If those policies aren't being followed, certainly it should come back up to the school committee members, and the school committee members should be able to have conversations. So it can be tricky as long as, as long as the rules are being applied to everybody fairly, then we don't have an issue. If the rules aren't being applied to everyone fairly, then certainly I think that school committee members need to get involved in it because we're overseeing the superintendent who's overseeing those principals.
Next question. Oh, I'm sorry. We have one more.
So I think, yes, it's definitely a policy issue. I think the school committee should be setting the right policy and allowing the principals and the administrators to make those decisions about discipline. But I think communication is also really important here, making sure that we're communicating any issues that are happening within the school so parents and teachers and students are aware of everything that's going on and keep those open lines of communication.
Okay, next question. Mark.
I'd like to go back to school choice, if possible. I just think that the town of Milford and the school committee don't quite understand the process. The school choice number, the school choice out dollars that we pay other schools for educating our kids is $1.4 million last year. The school choice in money was about $500,000 last year. That's the money that other schools pay us or other districts pay us to educate their kids. The problem is that the $1.4 million comes out of the general fund, not the school committee budget. $500,000 that comes into the school budget, not the general fund. So the town is actually spending $1.4 million more, I'm sorry, $1.9 million more in the school budget, but not in the school budget. So it's a real problem. It used to be pretty even. $500,000, nobody said anything, that was pretty cool. Now we're looking at a major deficit, and the school committee, I don't think, has spent enough time and enough energy trying to keep kids in the district. And I would like to know what you guys would like to do or how you think you can maintain the number of students that we have today and not have them choice out. What policies or procedures or programs, don't talk about programs because it's not it. The gentleman on the right said the real issue, we're a level 3 school. How do you make that better? That's what keeps kids in here. Plus, I believe back 10 years ago, people choiced into this school because of the athletic programs. The athletic programs have gone downhill over the years, and kids have choiced out because of that. So I think that's another area that needs to get looked at, but I would like to hear your opinion.
Okay, so I agree that there are concerning issues around this. And I think that, as I stated earlier, people hear about the negatives of the school system and are not hearing about the positives. They're not hearing about the programs that are doing well. They're not hearing about the kids who are graduating and going on to Harvard. They're hearing more about these other things that are concerning. I agree that we have to do better on the MCAS scores. I'll tell you right now, the administration has already started a pilot program where they're taking kids who having difficulties on the MCAS and giving them an extra course where they're focusing on the basics, and that is improving their scores drastically. So this is a program they want to ramp up over the next few years. And well, they are already getting the basics, but the thing is, some of them do not have a firm grasp of the basics. So sometimes you just have to go back and reteach some of the basics. That's all. I'm sorry, I'm getting the stop sign.
Thank you.
One quick thing with regards to athletics. We have to not lose sight of the fact that the main reason we go to school is for academics. And academics is more, the extracurriculars are fine. Yes, we need them and I support them. But the main reason we go to school is for academics. School rankings are, the methodology involved in ranking school systems is pretty involved. However, a big part of it is the SAT scores. And our SAT scores are not living up to the scores of surrounding towns or competing towns. We need to boost those scores. And the way we do that is we enhance our reading, writing, and math programs and science programs. We need to make sure that every student that leaves the Milford system is proficient in reading, writing, and math. If you can't read, if you cannot write, and you can't add, subtract, and multiply and divide, then you don't have a prayer out there, whether it's going to college or seeking other job opportunities that do not require a college degree. We need to enhance those programs before we do anything else or bring in any other kind of program. Reading, the 3 R's, if you will. You might, some of you older folks might remember the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Thank you.
Milford has, I'd say, a perception problem. Our school system and the town, Milford, I think, has a perception problem from other towns looking in and from parents who can afford to send their kids out of school or would just rather not want to deal with that because it just looks bad. And we have to fix that perception, and that definitely goes with the Tier 3 school. And that's where the parents want to go to a school where you can have good education, and we're clearly lacking that at the moment, and that's where we need to improve. And once that changes, you'll have more people move into the town and decide to keep their kids in Milford.
Thank you. So, I think as an HR professional, and someone who looks at why, how do we hire people? Who are we trying to hire? I would argue that academics are not the sole focus of an education. I think it's a lot more comprehensive than that. And I think there's a lot of reasons people leave the district. We mentioned sports programs, obviously test scores, the perception. We've all said it a number of times. We've got to tell ourselves a better story about Milford and all that we have to offer. The test scores are an average. They're an average of all the scores. We have students who are overperforming, excellent students. We need to figure out how to take the people that are underperforming, the students that are underperforming, engage them in their education, make them responsible for their education, make them want to score well. And I think when we talk about the test, the test basics, testing is different than academics. Testing is a much different animal than academics. So we just have to continue to work on that. Thank you.
So first off, I guess I would like to say I'm about 2 months into this job interview process, so I absolutely don't sit here claiming to have all the answers, but it's a great question and something we need to look at. I think for me personally, I understand why we talk about school choice because of the monetary impact, but in addressing the problem, I'd like to look at the whole population that's leaving. So be it a private school, a parochial school, a charter school, homeschooled, that number's closer to 600 kids, and I think before we start to address it, we need to understand the root cause. My instinct tells me we're losing some top-tier students as part of that, and so certainly that's affecting our accountability rating, right? If all of your top kids are leaving, that's impacted the accountability rating. I also believe they're looking to change the way they measure the accountability rating. The blog that Josh Otlin wrote, the principal at the high school, was really insightful in terms of how challenging it is for economically disadvantaged districts to achieve above a level 3 rating. And so I think hopefully something will be done at the state level to improve that as well.
Thank you. So I think we need to expand. We do have a marketing subcommittee as part of the school committee, and I think we do need to expand that group and making sure we're telling that story, the things that Megan and Sarah have just mentioned. We do need to share that information with the community so that they know. I do think that we have a large number of students who are doing very well here in our system, obviously. I mean, we prepare our students for some fantastic schools after they graduate. We saw the list just recently. They're going to very competitive colleges. So again, I think marketing ourselves and sharing that story with the town and with Milford. In general, I think that some of the students are going out in the early grades in kindergarten. So I think having an opportunity for enrichment programs at the lower elementary school levels is going to be really important. Maybe things like foreign language, helping to keep some of those students from leaving. Because the problem is if they leave in kindergarten, the chances of them coming back later are smaller.
Again, thank you for your question. The question was, about school choice. And certainly, as it's been stated, Milford has a perception problem, and we need to fix that perception problem, and that's at a community level also. Certainly, we need to make sure that we are investing in our schools appropriately and helping out with our schools appropriately from the community side of it. When I've gone through school improvement plans, one of those tasks is getting more community members involved. And that's always a challenge from the school improvement side, is getting community members involved in being part of the schools. Because if the community members are able to see what's going on in the schools, they're able to tell other people of what's going on in our schools and help basically marketing it. Certainly, we talk about the marketing side of it at during school council meetings or school committee meetings, but does it go beyond that? Is it only, seen there? So we've got to stretch out and have everybody be a part of it as a community.
Okay, next question, please.
How you doing? First off, thank you all for running. You're certainly making the decision to narrow it down to 3 best candidates very difficult. So I'm going to try to give you a tough question. Over the last few years, the school budget increase has more than doubled the guidance for the budget overall. They've always been over 4%. So gradually over time, that's going to cause an issue. So either we need to make the overall budget higher with the 2.5 override. We need to cut the proportion of the other town budgets, or get the school in line with the 2.5 that all the other budgets are. So I'd like to know which of those 3 strategies you guys would support going forward.
So I get to go first on the money question. I think that the budgeting process, I haven't obviously been involved in it, and I know we have an extremely diligent FinCom and an extremely diligent school committee. I don't know what the right answer is. I know that our population continues to grow, and it continues to grow with students who are going to need additional services, ELL and economically disadvantaged students who are going to need additional services. And we have to be prepared to offer those services if we want to get to the level school that we want to be, right? So how that happens, whether it's repurposing money or refocusing our efforts in different areas, I think that's something that as a school committee member, I'd have to explore. But I wouldn't say there's a silver bullet for figuring out, exactly how we're going to solution that financially at this point.
Hello. I'd say that the school budget's adequately funded at it meeting the needs of what we need to do to educate the students. And I don't support an override. I think what we need to do is spend the money that the town gives us more efficiently. Every year the current school committee comes up with new initiatives that cost more money year over year. Maybe we have to stop doing that and just have a long-term plan to lower the budget increases every year, get on par with the rest of the town, and that's where we can fix it.
We need to attack the problem at the root, and the root is the school budget. Milford spends per student well above the state average. So there is no reason in the world why we need to increase the budget at all. We should be able to work within the budget with maximum 2% increase per year. That's a maximum. Thank you.
I think we're slightly underfunded still, and I think it's mostly because we're not getting enough Chapter 70 funding. I think that we need a more generous algorithm where we'll get more Chapter 70 funding, and that's what our focus should be in the short term. We've been getting some generous increases in Chapter 70, but I think I don't think we're getting enough given the challenges in our town, and I think we really need more.
Thank you for your question. In regards to those 3 different criteria, certainly a 2.5 override I would never support. Certainly don't support increasing taxes as a taxpayer myself, even though I have 2 children in the school. So I think it's important when you look at a $60+ million budget that's over 60% of the town budget, that we go over that line by line and making sure the money's being spent efficiently. You know, certainly every program out there has a benefit to every child out there. So we have to make sure that, you know, of those programs, are we reaching just one child? Can we maybe bring that program over to where there's 10 children? So again, we need to look at every program, how it's benefiting our children, and making sure we're staying within our guideline budgets from the Finance Committee.
So I also do not support override. I think we need to, like Chris just mentioned, work within what we have and do our best to provide services to our students. And I think we are doing that. We need to continue to look at each item, each program, and see where we're reaching the most students and where we're having the most success. And so we would, as if elected to the school committee, I would look at that further and use my finance background further to look into each line item in the budget and do the best that I can to improve and continue on the success of our students.
Thanks for the question, Mike. I think overall we are fortunate in terms of how fiscally responsible this community has been, and certainly I would like to see that continue. That said, I don't think today I could take a stance that I could guarantee for the next 3 years I'm going to be willing to side with, just given you never know what's going to happen. But certainly I support fiscal responsibility. I love the efforts in terms of grant writing and additional places that we can seek funding where possible. That will be my answer today.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question before we move on to the next committee.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking part in running for the school committee. I'm a precinct member in Precinct 6. The question I have for you today is, what, if any, feelings you have towards the reinstitution of a civics program, a civics class, a required civics class in our school system?
I am very disappointed that it appears that we have moved away from civics programs in our schools. Now, I'm kind of dating myself, but I can remember when I was in the 7th grade, we were required, for example, to know all of the presidential cabinet positions. Not only the positions, but we were required to know who held those positions. We were required every day to go home, to come back to school and critique a news article that we had read in the paper. And I'm not talking about comics. I believe that we need, civics is very important. It's a part of our government. Our students need to know how government works. I was able to, at one of our town meetings, work with the school to get a group of students to come to the town meeting, which was on a specific issue. It was a forum on the water company, to get a group of students to come to the town meeting, to ask questions, get involved, and see how town meeting works. And I believe we need to do more of that. Thank you.
Hello. I believe civics is very important, and if we were to have, I believe we need to teach it better in schools, whether just by having a class for it or having it put into the current classes that we have today. But it's one of the most important things, and it would help more students get involved once they turn 18 and before, and that's the most important thing, is community involvement. I feel like if we have more if we teach civics, the students understand that at the local level, that's the most important. Decisions are made at the local level that affect them, and if we can teach them that, then we'll have more community involvement going forward.
So whether it's through a civics class or through learning or through opportunities to engage in the community, I definitely think it's something that we need to keep bringing back to students, right? Tomorrow we're all participating in a forum at the high school where we're going to show students what it means to give back to your community and be engaged with your community. I think that, you know, we definitely should have these kinds of dialogues. And I think the other thing is the social and emotional learning piece of it is also critical, because today you're seeing a lot of information. You're seeing a lot of stuff on the news and internet and stuff like that. You're not having a discourse. You're not having a discussion. You're not having an opportunity to really dialogue about what's going on in the world. And so opportunities to do that, whether through a civics class or a debate club or whatever the case may be, I think is critical and important.
Yes, I definitely agree with Sarah. I think the civics opportunity is critical, as well as there's other fundamentals I'm not certain that we're teaching or instilling in our children today, be it personal finance, credit, communications. So I'd love to take a closer look at the course catalog overall and see what additional options there are.
Yes, I would support a civics class. I also personally taught financial literacy at the high school level in my current position, so I would also agree with that. I would like to see more personal financial literacy courses. I think it's important that we're preparing our students for when they graduate and their success, and teaching such skills like employability skills and communication skills are going to be really important for our students today. Making sure that they can work together collaboratively, that they can communicate, that they can work in a team environment. Those are all really important skills that I hope our students are getting before they leave Milford High School.
Thank you for your question. In regards to reinstituting a civics program at the high school, I believe, yes, it's extremely important. Certainly without it from my past, I probably wouldn't be sitting up here with, a fundamental, desire to serve my community. So, yes, do we need it? 100%. So I encourage you, when it comes time at the next school committee meeting, to make your voice heard and be up there. Again, that comes right back to the community involvement side. At the start of every school committee meeting, there's an invitation to speak, and I certainly would hope that you would come up, be a part of the invitation to speak, and whoever is up there will hear your voice. So thank you.
Yes, I've already said that I'm for a civics program, much more robust than the things that we have now. I'd like kids to know about local government, state government, national government, the roles of the different bodies, the Supreme Court decisions that got us here, all the events that have shaped the country to shape the world that they're going to enter once they get into the working world. We do a really good job, I think, right now in preparing kids for a career. I'd like to see us to do a better job preparing them to be better citizens.
It's sort of an issue I have with the current Milford High School. I look at the paper and I see that over 400 students in Milford High School make the honor roll. I have trouble with that numeric. What it says to me is that these kids are extremely successful in the Milford school environment. 400 on the honor roll. And yet when you correlate that with performance, where tests are taking place, where they're measured outside the school system, vis-a-vis SATs and MCATs, they don't correlate. They're not achieving at that level. Do you have any theory on why that is? Mine is that they're not being pushed hard enough academically in comparison to other students in other districts. there's a sense of complacency that if you make the honor roll, somehow you've done well, when you really don't know how much merit there is in an honor roll that has 400 students on it. So I wonder if any of you have an opinion on that.
Well, we have 11 to 1,200 kids in the high school, and so that's around a third of them are making the honor roll. And if you look at other surrounding towns, it's just they get around 40%. So we're just a little behind, still behind, and how we fix that. And I think one problem is, like you said, they're not being pushed enough. I'd say some kids aren't being pushed. You can choose your classes. So you can choose the easy way out. You can take a CP class your entire 4 years of high school, and you're not required to take that honors class to the AP class and go to the next level. And then you just, like you mentioned, you will stay complacent, and you'll never get better. We'll never improve if we're complacent. So maybe we should try to push these kids to try harder in school, and then we could achieve we can get to the next level together.
We need to keep in mind that when you're in high school, all of the teachers grade differently. There's no two teachers that would grade the same way. So an A from one teacher might only be a B from another teacher, and that has a direct effect on whether a student makes the honor roll or not. The only fair gauge of knowledge is with standardized testing, and that's why you find that Milford's performance on SATs is far below what the College Board has established as a grade which indicates a student is ready for college or other career opportunities not requiring a college degree. Also, keep in mind, we talked a little bit earlier about advanced placement tests. Milford's rate of passing the AP exams last year was 52%. That to me is unacceptable. We need to teach our students the basics in order so we can get so our AP passing rate is higher than 52%. It should be higher than 70. It should be 90%, not 52%. But thank you.
I would need to study the issue more to find out exactly, the statistics behind this. But I would say, generally speaking, there are some kids who aren't getting a good grasp on the basics, and that some of those kids probably would do well with some courses that would help them out with some remedial studies to get them to test better, to get them to grasp concepts better. Not every teacher-student relationship is the same, and so sometimes a different approach or a different method of teaching a given concept does a better job in teaching a given student. And so these are all things that we would have to take a look at as to why certain students are doing better than other students.
Thank you for your question. Certainly it's a concern that when you have that low percentage. So you have to look at, are we truly challenging every student? We have to make sure that we're not teaching to the test, that we're teaching from a general education standpoint. So, and we also need to look back at the grade levels below to ensure that when they do reach high school age, that they have all the building blocks to be able to achieve high school curriculum. So certainly it's not necessarily just a high school issue, but we have to look at grades K through 8 to ensure that, when they do reach freshman year, that they're prepared to be challenged.
So I would have to look into that calculation a little bit further. I'm not so sure that our percentage of students meeting the high honor roll or making the high honor roll is very different from other schools, but that was something that I would look into further in research to make sure that we're preparing our students.
That is also a topic, unfortunately, that has not yet hit my radar. The one point I guess I will share is that recently the principal of Milford High came to the school committee to talk about how we're going to reevaluate calculating students' GPA, because the way we had been doing it historically was not in line with how colleges were doing it. And so I just would say that that's a step in the right direction.
Thank you. And to follow on to what Meg said, actually, they recalculated it this past quarter and sent out students, their new calculations. But I personally believe testing is very different than academic, grades. And I think testing can be very challenging for some people. I myself was a great tester. My grades weren't as good. Most people are actually the opposite, not great testers, but can do really well in school. They're different animals and it's a different challenge. And then the other thing is when you look at our test scores, they're usually come to you as an average, right? And high honor roll is not an average. It's the student themselves and how they've achieved. So, is there more work to be done to look at that? I think we need to look overall at our test scores and figure out what we can do to improve them for all our students. That'd be what I say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you all for coming. I want to thank you for hosting this event. As many of you here know, my name is John Erickson, candidate for the Board of Selectmen. As Steve introduced me, I am the former building commissioner for the town of Milford. I have 16 years serving Milford, either as a part-time town employee, full-time town employee, or an elected town official. In my years of public employment, I grew to understand town government from the inside out, working closely with virtually all of the town departments, from police, fire, Board of Health, planning, engineering, finance, and selectmen's offices. I've gained an insight that I really don't think many people can gain without having lived those experiences. It's this insight that was invaluable to me in the past 3 years as an elected member of your school committee. So with this knowledge and understanding, I plan to bring a stability to enable our professionals here in the town of Milford to succeed in a manner that they really haven't been able to in the past several years. There's a lot of cliches, and some of them are very overused in society, but a pretty famous one locally is know your role and do your job, and I think that applies very well to town government. I see, personally, some problems in this town. Some of them are wide in nature, meaning I've brought this to light in many conversations. Our comprehensive plan that was developed in 2003 has never been embraced in the manner that I think it should have been embraced. A lot of the problems we complain about today, whether it's downtown, traffic, economic development, open space preservation, all of these were addressed back in 2003, and I don't think they've ever been properly embraced, and that would be my initial focus in coming to the Board of Selectmen. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Will?
Thank you to the citizens from Milford for hosting this candidates forum tonight, and specifically Steve and Donna. Thank you. I'd also like to take time to thank John Erickson for participating as well. I want everyone to know that you have a choice in this election between not only two good candidates, but quite honestly, two good men. John and I have known each other for many years and know each other's families. We do have different paths for moving forward in Milford, and the voters will choose the candidate in the path that they prefer. Prior to serving as your selectman, I served as a town meeting member, a member of the Milford Pond Restoration Committee, a commissioner on the Milford Housing Authority, a finance committee member, and 9 years on the Milford School Committee. Some of the work I'm most proud of took place when I was on the school committee. I was part of a committee that made full-day kindergarten a reality here in Milford. We partnered with the New England Center for Children, so some of our special needs students did not have to leave their friends and travel out of district. We renovated 3 school buildings and advocated to set funds aside every year for more than a decade so that we could afford to build the new Woodland School. These were great accomplishments. It is such an important role, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you candidates running for school committee this year. Thank you. I've enjoyed serving as your selectman for the last 3 years, and I hope to serve for 3 more. It's a great deal of work to do it right, but it's very rewarding. Whether it's keeping a tight rein on finances, negotiating the acquisition of the water company, or collectively bargaining with our employees, it's been an honor to serve. I've had the opportunity to work with some very talented people. I've been able to get to know them and their families. Holding monthly office hours has allowed me to have personal meetings with constituents who prefer to meet face-to-face rather than over the phone or email. I've also received hundreds of calls and emails from constituents, and I've tried my best to be timely and responsive. On a personal note, there's no other place where Lisa and I want to raise our son. We want Caleb to grow up here and for him to see all that Milford has to offer. Thank you again for having me serve as your selectman, and I ask for your vote again so I can serve for 3 more years and continue to fight what I've been calling Milford pride. Thank you.
Okay, we'll begin now with questions from the voters.
Yes, Dr. Richard Heller. Question for Mr. Kincaid. Talking with Council Jerry Moody, Milford's Board of Selectmen supposedly follows the Robert's Rules of Orders. I've been on 2 town boards, the Cultural Committee and Town Library Trustee many years ago. We always follow Robert's Rules of Order. In looking at the Selectmen's meeting, I see where oftentimes a motion is made, it'll be a second, and then somebody will make a third, and then there is no discussion and then no vote on the motion. In my way of reasoning, is that number 1, this is not very transparent, and number 2, I don't think that when you just have a vote for the motion that there's never a vote for whatever it was that they're talking about is a proper way to do things. Can you address that issue? And to me, it's just that the Board of Selectmen is not very transparent.
Will, you want to start?
Dr. Heller, besides some examples which you're probably very correct in the sense that we've moved pretty rapidly through some, but generally those are the ones that are we usually call our housekeeping issues, whether they're a motion to have a parade for the Knights of Columbus, or whether it's the fire department when they're doing their toll road. Those are some of the things that have been long traditions here in Milford that, quite honestly, I don't think we spend a lot of time on them. Maybe we should. So you've served certainly this town for a long period of time. I appreciate that. Maybe we can't take some of those votes very, I guess, for granted, so to speak. But as for anything of substance, I believe we have pretty good conversation. I don't remember a vote of any substance where we didn't have a discussion on that. Sorry.
John?
Excuse me, I'm stepping on the cord here. Yeah, Dr. Heller, thank you. I do understand what you're saying, and the instances that are being described in such where, the chairman is holding a meeting, and he calls, or a motion is made, and then one is seconded, and then the procedure plays out that it's unanimous. When in reality, it should be called to a vote. You don't just motion second and call it unanimous, but that's procedural impact, and I don't think there's any ill will on that. But when you talk about transparency, and I expect this will come up somewhere in this forum, the problem that I have with the transparency is that I don't see any explanations for a number of the controversial votes that have been made. A number of them, I'm sure some of these topics will come up, but to me it's not just a matter of Robert's rules, and I think they haven't been followed to the T. But to me, as a resident, as a voter, I want my leaders to explain their decisions, and I think that's where this board, not just my opponent tonight, has fallen short.
Thank you, John. Right here.
Thank you. Yeah, the comprehensive plan that Mr. Erickson commented on. Back in '03, I personally consulted with the team from UMass to develop that comprehensive plan. As we sit here tonight, very little, if any, part of that comprehensive plan has been implemented. Can you tell us why none of that plan has been implemented? By the way, the plan cost the taxpayers thousands of dollars. Thank you.
John, would you go?
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for that question. It's been one of the focuses of not just this campaign, but in my time at the town hall. As many of you know, I worked as the building commissioner very closely with planning and engineering. Our town planner, Larry Duncan, was an integral part of that comprehensive plan, as was every member of the planning board. Again, as I mentioned earlier, there's a number of concerns that we all have in Milford, and they're too numerous to list in the time I have to respond, but I don't think they've been embraced. I think that it precedes this administration that we have in place, but there's ideas that are coming forward now that have been out there for 15 years, such as bringing residential uses to the downtown area, such as focusing on our downtown and forming committees that we have residents and developers focusing on now, and should have been, embraced and addressed more by our leadership in years past.
Will?
Thank you, John. John and I have discussed this issue recently, even at other forums. I'm not sure why the comprehensive plan doesn't get the attention that some folks are looking for it to have. When I first got elected 3 years ago, I reached out, I got a copy, I went through it. There just doesn't seem to be an appetite for it. I'm not sure why, but I think that's why a lot of us, at least I, are being aggressive on trying to go down the checklist and go after these one project at a time. Whether it's an old idea, a new idea, as long as it's a good idea, I'm going to keep pushing for it, and I'm going to continue to be as aggressive as I can. So a lot of things in that comprehensive plan that we are addressing now, and I'm bringing up one issue at a time. What's the alternative? To continue to let it collect dust on the shelf? I'm not going to be elected and allow that to happen. So thank you.
So I apologize. This is going to be about the marijuana vote. It appears that when the referendum was written, you didn't know that these companies were in town. Based on meetings that I saw, and there was a mention that the towns would be just grandfathered in, and obviously that didn't happen. It created, I guess, a divide in the town. So I guess the question is, did you know these companies were in town? If not, why? And you take some responsibility of all these elections that we had to have and the spending that we incurred. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, I have to take responsibility for it. I'm on the board. It did cause a little strife between the membership because prior to, I admit I missed 2 meetings in 3 years. That's why my wife was in the hospital. And during those 2 meetings, this is where this language change took place. I did know of one of the companies in Milford. Now it's Sierra. It was Sage then. I had no idea they were looking to get into the recreational marijuana business, but I was well aware of them being in the medical marijuana business. I toured the facility. I've known Mike Dundas prior to even coming to Milford. So when he came here and reached out, asked me if I wanted to have a tour, I became very familiar with the operation. Proverti, I did not know what they did. All I did on a regular basis was see and recognize their sign on Fortune Boulevard. But also, Chris Hudala, who owns and runs that lab, reached out to me, and I went down there, also with the chairman of the FinCom, Chris Morin, and we did a tour, and he explained his business and how he wanted to move forward, and it was in the best interest of his company. So that's when we started getting involved with changing the language, making the amendment. I know it was frustrating to have another election, but that was at the recommendation of our attorneys and the Attorney General's office. So most of us should follow our lawyer's advice, and that's what we did. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, so as far as these two businesses go, I was a building commissioner at the time when each of these businesses opened. So I certainly issued the building permits for them to open, ensured zoning compliance, and was, highly aware of their activities and what they were doing. As far as the initial referendum, what I can say is that I know that the Board of Selectmen at that time had a choice. What they brought forward for the fall referendum, they had information that made them aware that these two businesses existed. They had time to change the referendum to match what ultimately passed at town meeting, and the decision was made not to do that. They went forward with what they presented, and as a result, it was modified at town meeting, and then we had this second unnecessary referendum. And I can't explain why they did that with that information available, but that's what we, the residents of Milford, have had to live with as a result. We've wasted money, there's been a lot of confusion, and people didn't truly understand the results of their votes.
With regard to comprehensive, am I on? With regards to the comprehensive plan, has anyone ever put a price tag on it? Is that where the problem lies? Thank you.
John?
So again, the ideas presented in the comprehensive plan date back to 2002, and the comprehensive plan was published in 2003. Were individual costs explicitly outlined? I'm not sure. I don't have the information on that. But at this point, if you're talking cost, I think at this point we're looking at the cost of developing a new comprehensive plan. This plan isn't something that can just be updated. It's something that continually needs to be thought about and modified. That's the language from that plan in 2003. I know that the planning board has now, presented an inclination for the town to set aside a certain number of dollars and funds going forward to redevelop this plan. But it's by definition or by nomenclature, it's comprehensive. It's not something that can be done quickly, but it's something that everyone here and everyone in Milford will have a chance to contribute their thoughts and ideas. And where do we want to direct Milford in the coming years? What do we want to accomplish?
Well, I think something that also shouldn't get lost when we talk about comprehensive plans is that plan dates back to 2003. It's already 15 years old. So a lot has changed. Every time leadership changes, agendas change. We are running for election. We run on an agenda. If you support that agenda, you also expect us to follow through with that. If people elect me on a certain agenda, some of those things may actually contradict the plan, a comprehensive plan. And that's okay. That's government growing and moving and changing along with some of the things that change. Some of the things that we thought were acceptable here in Milford 15 years ago, I'll tell you, I'm getting the calls on a daily basis. They're no longer acceptable. I'm getting calls about trash on the streets, vacancies on Main Street. We don't, just like Middle School East, which I'm sure we'll talk about, no one wants that building vacant. We grew up with the Stacy School on Spruce Street, boarded up for how many years? We don't need that on Main Street. That may contradict the comprehensive plan. That's okay. We need to continue to move and grow with this. Again, things that were acceptable 15 years ago, believe me, they're no longer acceptable. And it's another generation coming here and choosing to raise their families here, and that's what we want.
Thank you, gentlemen. 90% of municipalities in Massachusetts have some sort of social media presence, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. Milford does not. The town does have a new website, but I've seen at least 9 boards that have no agendas and no meeting minutes posted on there. And the town website has a calendar, but a good number of the events posted on the town hall list don't make it onto the calendar. So my question to you would be, if elected, what will you do to make town hall more accessible to the people?
Brian, you pay very close attention, so you know this has been a point of conversation for some time. Amy Neves and I, she does a great job, letting people know through social media. Our police department does a great job on their social media as well. From a town-wide, you're absolutely right. We are not good at it. We're practically invisible. That has been an issue to some of us. Also, within Town Hall, there is a resistance. It's another thing to manage. It's another thing to be responsible of. These are conversations that we've had at both public meetings and I've had with the town administrator offline. Again, I think we're going to need to keep pushing that, and we don't want to try to find additional. We're not looking to spend more money on additional resources, but we are going to have to look to probably our current resources and see who can do that, because it is, and it can be, quite a timely commitment when you're the social media person for either a department or an agency.
So thank you. I think the first thing that has to be understood is that all town departments do not fall under the purview of the Board of Selectmen. We have a number of elected boards in this town, and they follow, drastically different protocols. We have somebody like the Board of Health that meets on the same Monday or Tuesday of every month, the first one, whatever it is, second one. And then we have other elected boards that don't have regularly scheduled meetings and sometimes post their meetings 2 or 3 days in advance. I think, if these boards want people to be involved, be in tune, they should do a better job of letting the public know when they're meeting and what they're going to discuss. And that hasn't happened, and that's not always under the Board of Selectmen. But again, this comes back to what I said earlier. I think the biggest problem within our town government is the lack of transparency. We have posted meetings. Sometimes these postings are followed, sometimes they're not. And again, it comes down to the explanations I've been asking about earlier. I think we deserve better explanations publicly in these public meetings, posted meetings that are on TV than we're getting now. Thank you.
Next.
This question in reference to one of the prior questions. The recent election we had, I took umbrage with the fact that the selectmen had it a month before our regular town election. We all know that special elections, you get low voter turnout, and it proved it on this one. We had 14.5% turnout. It's also my understanding, I spoke with town clerk's office, and it cost town of Milford $20,000 to have this election. That works out to about $100 per vote. I don't see any reason why this could not have been on the ballot in our regular election. Would have had a much bigger turnout. Percentages might have been the same, but again, you were giving more of the people a chance to do it. The other thing is that I know in the papers that I read and the selectmen said that permitting was starting on April 1st. April 1st is actually a Sunday, so we'd have been talking if somebody even had applied for a permit, it wouldn't have done it on a Sunday, and the state cannabis control firm, the organization in the State House, theirs is also April 1st, and we all know that no business is done in government on Sundays. So at the most that somebody, even if they could have applied, they would have had to wait. And this was just an application to be filed. Nobody was taking action.
Excuse me,
So-
Dr. Heller, do you have a question?
Yeah, the question is, why was this not election held, the valid question, on the April 3rd date?
John, yeah, you better take that one.
No, great question again, Dr. Heller, and it was my same question. I went to Amy Neves, and I wanted to have it on the same date as the town election. It makes the most sense, both financially and for turnout. It was our attorneys again, and the Attorney General's office, and town council relaying the message that said to us, it could happen on the 1st, and that application filing could result in an issue. So to actually cover all your bases and to be safe and protect the original vote that was taken here in Milford was to have that prior to the April 3rd election. After hearing that, which again was discussed at a public meeting, I went to Amy again. She came up with 3 possible dates that worked best for her. That's how we arrived at the March 6th date. Our board unanimously wanted to make sure that we gave both Amy enough time and her staff. Especially, we have some snowbirds that work the April election and are gone February and March. So she wanted to make sure also that she had enough people for the job. So that's how we arrived at the March 6th based on the town clerk's recommendation.
John, would you like to comment on that?
I would, thank you. Thank you. So I think the 2 points of this are that need to be made are when the Attorney General's guidance is referenced, that was in reference to the last zoning amendment that was adopted at the fall town meeting. It needed to match the language in the referendum from September exactly. If not, the zoning amendment was not valid. As far as having the election on March 6th versus April 3rd, I spoke personally to town council and other local attorneys and state officials, and there is no such thing as a grandfathering for an application that would arrive on Sunday, April 1st or Monday, April 2nd. There's just no validity to that thought. Those are the facts. I can't answer why the election was in March rather than in conjunction with our annual town election, but Will here has, and that's all I have on this one.
Before we take another question, did we have some folks send some questions that they would like to be asked, Amy? Okay.
Another small issue. I have an enforcement issue with the police department. While I was standing out holding a sign for 3 hours in the cold, way back when the September election was taking place for this very issue we were just talking about, 52 cars passed by my station that had either illegal license plates, that is, no registration on them, or were expired. On another occasion, when I dropped my granddaughter off to have her teeth taken care of at a local orthodontist, I was being retired, have a lot of free time sometimes, and I counted 14 cars with no registration on them at all behind the current Main Street, right behind the orthodontist office. Although it may not appear to be a serious criminal problem, in my opinion, it is symptomatic of a lot of issues with this town, i.e. a lot of illegal driving in this town, which is dangerous and unlawful. So I would suggest that...
Do you have a question?
Yeah, would you guys take a position that the police chief ought to be a little bit more mindful of enforcing motor vehicle rules in the town of Milford?
John?
So I appreciate that question. I understand your concerns, but when I look at the performance of the police chief, I don't have to look any further than the press release that was issued today. The police union gave him a raving endorsement, which is pretty much unheard of from what I understand in the law enforcement community. The chief of police in Milford has done more for this community than I think anyone ever expected when he came in 16 years ago. You know, crime is at an all-time low. Most of us have probably seen that publication that went out a few weeks ago, and if you haven't had a chance to see the endorsement that the police union has given him, and I mean, that's a big thing. Union employees don't often embrace their supervisors, and that's what's happened in this community. That's a testament to all that he has done, and while the union has embraced him, while everyone that I know here in town has embraced him, unfortunately, I don't think that this current board has embraced him as much as they should, and I hope more of that comes out coming forward.
Will?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to make this about the chief. I'll disclose something. I've known Tom O'Laughlin over 20 years, way before he came to Milford. He's a stand-up guy, John, so I don't have a problem with anything of that nature. What I will say is maybe this is something that we need to have the chief give us an update on. He's usually in our meetings once a month, at a minimum anyway, where he brings us up to date on certain issues. I mean, something we're working on, we literally asked 2 weeks ago for a new plan with the dollar amount to make our schools safer, and what that would mean which means additional police officers and a new, I'm not even sure, I'm not a police officer, almost like a special operations team for responses. He turned that around right away, and to me that's a much bigger priority. However, something like this that you noticed and you legitimately noticed it, then I'll take it on and we'll get an update and figure out what we can do moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Jerry, we, besides inviting the public here to ask questions, we also requested that anyone who could not make this meeting would send in questions, and we have a few, so I'm going to ask Jerry to give us a couple.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone. We did receive quite a few emails. Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah. Yes, we did invite the community to submit questions by email, and we received quite a few. Some of them we have already discussed in the previous questions, but one of them is, the Board of Selectmen has a fiduciary responsibility to the town, and at the same time acts as the governing body of a town of employees. Please describe the philosophy that drives your decision-making when trying to balance the needs of taxpayers with the needs of town employees, such as while considering benefits and cost of living adjustments.
John, would you start?
Thank you, Jerry. I think when you're talking about your budget and what you're taxing the taxpayers here in Milford, everything is a balance. So you have to weigh out, you know, what you're going to get by making certain decisions. And I can't come up here and say any absolutes, but we can certainly lower our taxes if that's our goal, but there'll be an expense with that, and that's the expense of services. And your question was more specifically towards, you know, what we offer for benefits to our town employees, and that's just another balance. We have, and we want to keep very highly qualified town employees, and we want to offer as much as we can without giving away the bank, so to speak. So I don't have any absolute answer, but that's the mindset that I approach this topic with.
Will?
No, I think quite simply, whether we're managing our household budgets or our budgets for our workplace or being at the table at the Board of Selectmen, it's a balancing act. We want our employees to have everything they need to do to be successful. We also need them to have everything it takes for us to be competitive in the marketplace, so that we're getting the best employees that we can get that are interested in coming to work for a municipality. I think that's probably the simple answer. We do have a fiduciary responsibility. Every decision we make is you know, publicly available. Where every dollar goes, we all get our town reports if we want them. But I think, again, it's a balancing act. We need to stay competitive. We need to provide our employees with what they need to be successful. But also, we have to keep in mind that the taxpayer is paying the tab.
Jerry, do you have
Two more?
Two more.
What is your philosophy on a worker's right to unionize, and how do you see yourself interacting with local unions in Milford?
Geez, 20 years. I don't think I've ever gotten that question. Quite comfortable. Most of our employees that have wanted to unionize have. I think the newest union that we might have, if it happens to be, will be when we acquire the water company. They will most likely want to unionize. I would expect them to, and I would certainly appreciate that. In my workplace, I deal with 29 different unions. You go by the collective bargaining agreements. You try to stick to that language. That's the way that either side can be respectful of each other. Obviously, exceptions are made. But I think, you know, for the most part, we collaboratively bargained when I was on the school committee, which I encourage my colleagues that are running for the school committee, if they get the chance to either collectively bargain or collaboratively bargain, they should collaboratively bargain. I haven't won that. I haven't won that fight at the Board of Selectmen yet. I'm still looking for a second vote, Mike, to eventually collaboratively bargain, because we live in the same town. I'm sorry, I'm going to go over on this one. We live in the same town. We shouldn't pretend that we don't know the people that are working for us. I appreciate sitting at the table with them rather than communicating through a mediator in separate rooms. Thank you.
Okay, John, you have an extra 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So having this experience in the past 2 cycles of teacher negotiation contracts, I've got a real appreciation for what we're trying to accomplish in these negotiations. They're looking for certainly their most advantageous financial compensation, but they're also really concerned about conditions in their workplace. And these are things that we can accommodate or try to and actually accommodate them with some of their concerns. Everybody wants, you know, to be compensated well for their service, but there's a lot more to the positions than just the dollar amount. And I think that, you know, by negotiating with them, hearing their concerns, and again, balancing back to the, you know, previous question or earlier question, you know, taking everything in balance and doing the best we can for these employees with also considering the residents and taxpayers' concerns is what you do going forward. You're just trying to do the best you can to make this as good of a community as you can.
We'll give you one more.
One
Jerry.
more, Steve. Okay.
How many questions did you get sent in?
Oh, I don't know.
Lots?
Quite a few, but a lot of them were redundant with questions that have already been asked.
Okay.
Can you explain what an asset sale means for the Milford Water Company and how that would affect all the ratepayers in town if the town proceeds with the purchase?
John, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so my understanding is that what we're going forward with now is an asset purchase of the Milford Water Company, where earlier in this process it was going to be a simple stock purchase. And what that means now is that we filed legislation with the SJC in Massachusetts to make this asset purchase, and as in conjunction with this, the DPU has been called in, and they'll actually set the value of the Milford Water Company. And what that means is that $63 million that was approved at town meeting to purchase the Milford Water Company may not be an accurate number. We may need more, we may need less. If all the negotiations and everything in the last process went perfectly, it'll be in and around that, but it could be significantly more, significantly less. And if it's more, that's going to take another action by town meeting to approve additional spending. If we're fortunate enough that it's less, then we all win.
Well,
no, John had the process down, so what I'll add is the stock sale is anything but simple. It's actually far more complex than an asset sale. They came in when we first started the negotiations preferring for a stock sale. So I guess that was one of the first things to show good faith, that our team said, okay, let's move forward with the stock sale. Now we have to negotiate a price. They came in at $120 million. We came in at $40 million and negotiated to $63 million. Now going before the DPU because, well, I'll say it this way. We, the town of Milford, continue to practice and negotiate in good faith. I can't necessarily say that on the other side. That's how negotiations broke down. Now we're going before the DPU, and a hearing officer will decide the value based on the assets we need. There are certain assets that we don't need or require, and those should lower the price. I hope it does. They could find a value higher, and we'll have to deal with it, and if town meeting still chooses to move forward, then we'll be looking for additional funds. I think an asset sale will be more advantageous to the town. And it's a lot more concrete than a stock sale. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you very much to the Board of Selectmen candidates. And I want to take an opportunity to thank you all for coming tonight. This concludes our program for this evening.